epidemic of greatness. We are a precious creation. Our black has no imitation. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. I'm the truth, I am a fact. They lie on me, I have to laugh. I write it down, it happens next. So be it, see to it. I'm the truth, I am a fact. They lie on me, I have to laugh. I write it down, it happens next. So be it, see to it.
Free. Free. We are free. Free. We will be free. Immigrant youth, North American roots, supernatural proof, international truth, superhero salute, all of my people aloof. What do you choose, a bullet or noose? Why do we live in polluting and clean and remove? Forgive me, I lose track, most of my people are under attack. Trying to breathe, smother the gas, working the shit, pumping the gas, driving a cab, paying the tax, laying their country flat, open a laundromat, what's wrong with that? Everything relative, self-development. And he said he been digging a plant, give him an inch and he taking the land. Everyone's scared to be sticking a man, must be that taste of freedom. What you think it takes to beat him? He's the cheater, there's no trust in that. I don't even think my country love me back. Free. We are free. Free. We will be free. We are the native sons and daughters. We are the brave and hunted. We are the same. We are amazing. We are the hated. We are the favorite. We are the change. We are the sacred. We are the strange. We either came on a boat or a plane. Both of them harbored the pain. We are the masters. We are the slaves. We are the cast out in the rain. We are the sheltered. We are the helpless. We are the vain. We are the selfish. We are the blame. We are the shooter, the victim, the home, the drone. We are the here. We are the fear. We're the reflection in the mirror. Yeah. We are the people. We are the equal. We are the past and we are the sequel. We are the never. We're the forever. We live in hell and we live in the heaven. Honestly, can't even tell you the difference. We are the cause. We are effect. We are the blessed. And I also believe that we could be the best. Free. We are free. Free. Worldwide. We will be free.
I need to know that my voice is not screaming for help under a flooded society, that it is being heard, not just to be heard, but to be taken seriously. I need wealthy policymakers to stop putting my future up for profit. I need to know that the beautiful scenes I am privileged to witness can be admired by my grandchildren and future generations to come. I need them to stop because we sure as hell won't. La naturaleza es belleza, entonces deja que se quede así. Because to protect her is to protect us. I just need a livable future. Is that too much to ask? Ask, 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 ask.
Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay. No one is disposable. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay. No one is disposable.
COVID and climate change ain't far from the same. People in the margins disrespected and blamed. They put oil and gas infrastructures where we play, contaminate the land, air, and the rain. Our health in a game, our lungs are inflamed. Stuck in a cage with a severe corona case. Displaced by the climate while they profit from our pain. But I don't see them treating their children the same way. Hey, they try to bury me, but don't know I'm a seed. We are seeds, existing, flourishing with no ID. No one is disposable. We are capable, rooted like a vegetable, and taking back the time to give it to my people. Want everything equal, no government's free throw. We know how to water the roots. Need no politician telling us how to do it. Need no politician telling us how to
Let
do
them know
it.
they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay. No one is disposable. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay.
Don't they know?
No one is disposable.
Tried to bury us, didn't know we were seeds. Frighten us, expecting us to retreat, recede, fall back. Shut up, sit down. We rooted here and breaking ground. Concrete roses and dandelions. Come summertime, we fly the wind with wishes of our family riding, rising high, carry them up to God's ears. Divine beings, we know that God hears. See the system writhing, crying, fighting for its last dying breath. It rather pillage till it's nothing left, and paradigm shift to the left. Like sharing wealth will be the kiss of death. Well, I got a news flash for you folks. Our youth are ravenous savages, and they ain't gonna take no more. So kiss your billions to sleep tonight, cause come morning time, we gon' retrieve our birthright.
Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay. No one is disposable. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, no. Let them know they can't throw us away, ay. No one is disposable.
Burning bright with hope and love. Sexism, racism they throw at us.
You can throw us into dirt and darkness, but just like a plant, we grow through the soil and towards the light.
Controlling us as if we are property. Though they try to change us, we are unbreakable.
You have forgotten what happens when we unite. Together we are strongest, and we will fight. We need a livable future, and not just for the wealthy.
They look at us with greed-filled eyes, afraid of our strength.
The toxic pollution you dump into the air is like poison and makes us all unhealthy. I'm fighting for my sisters and brothers in Mother Earth. I'm sorry that you have forgotten her worth.
It depends on our people understanding how important our voices and thoughts are. Because unlike before, we refuse to be silenced. I'm fighting for a world where people will be prioritized over profit. A world where we no longer have to fear poverty, immigration, white supremacy, racism, sexism, homophobia, and other truly ugly things in this truly beautiful world. I stand with those who continue to be systematically silenced and whose presence seems to be dismissed. For those who have been here for centuries long before us and continue to be exploited and misrepresented. I stand with the indigenous leaders who are filled with knowledge but are constantly mistakenly spoken for.
Hello, hello, folks. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for Teaching for Social Justice. Solidarity in Uprisings and Crisis. My name is Andrew Yeung. I'm one of the core organizers with Teachers for Social Justice, and super grateful for you all joining us today. For an image description, I am a light-skinned East Asian person. I'm wearing glasses, and I've got hair that's short on the sides and really long on top. It's that COVID length. And I'm wearing a black button-up. And I'm gonna let Farima do a little quick intro before we keep it moving.
Hi, y'all. It's great to share virtual space with folks. Farima Pour-Khorshid, also core organizer with the Teachers for Social Justice. And as a visual description, I am a young, brown, pretty young thing joining you today with some black rimmed glasses. I have a black t-shirt on with a red line and white lettering that says abolition, and excited to share space with y'all.
Thanks, Fadi. And again, today is the third part of a series that we began in October. Our task entitled today is Another World is Possible. In October, in a year of uprisings for Black lives, we reckoned with anti-Blackness in schooling and the work of centering Black lives and liberation. Last month, we grappled with the long afterlives of settler colonialism and worked to unsettle the colonial classroom. Today, our assertion is that another world is possible, both as a rallying call and as a central practice of hope at the close of this incredibly painful and transformative year, in which so many long existing crises boiled up and over. Thank you so much to Lizbeth Ibarra and Isha Clarke with Youth versus Apocalypse, Kat Brooks with Anti-Police Terror Project, and Talila Lewis, AKA TL, community lawyer, educator, activist, and artist. Thank you so much to Diana Gameros, who will be closing our space with their art. We wanted to do a little bit of space keeping before we jump right into it, but thank you again. And we're excited to be in community this afternoon.
Thanks, Andrew. So just to let folks know, Teachers for Social Justice as an organization is trying really hard to make sure that we do better, right? And so for us, access is not just about logistics. It's integral to the love and liberation that we are committed to building a movement that represents folks that we want in leadership. So with disability justice being central to this, we are still growing in this regard. But we do want to just start off by giving a shout out to our two ASL interpreters today, Amber Brule and Valerie McMillian. Thank you so much for the work that you continue to do with and for our communities to make things accessible. We'll strive to make sure that the interpreters are always spotlighted and on your screen during the session. So if you're accessing this on Zoom today, during screen sharing, if your window is in full screen mode, you can enlarge the interpreter's window by dragging it, their video to the corner. And if you have access or other tech issues, you can use the Q&A button because that is reserved for accessibility and tech issues only. So today, again, please just make sure that you're using the Q&A for accessibility purposes, and all other questions that you might have can go in the chat. And to access live captioning, you can just click on the CC button and adjust the caption size by clicking on subtitle settings. So another thing that we wanted to make sure that we're all in agreement to is how we want to share space, including virtual space. So we want you to just be aware of your relative power and privilege in the world. I've been learning a lot actually from TL around even just, freedom privilege, right? And so just thinking about what space you take up into the world, really reflecting on critical intersectionality. And with that said, we want you to chat mindfully. Drew, if you can click again, we want you to be aware of what is the purpose of you wanting to share in the chat? Is it to affirm speakers? Is it that you're sharing resources, that you're building connection with folks, that you're amplifying what resonates for you, etc.? be aware of what you're wanting to chat and why, but also monitor your own space keeping or space taking in the chat. So try not to engage in settler splaining, white splaining, mansplaining, cis splaining, hetero splaining, ability splaining, right? And use the QA function for access and tech issues only. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Fadi. And we can't do this work without acknowledging that we are on Ohlone land. Teachers for Social Justice, our work happens in either what many call San Francisco, which is stolen, occupied, unceded Ramaytush Ohlone lands, and what many call the East Bay, Chochenyo Ohlone land. The theft of this land from Ohlone people is part of an ongoing genocide taking place for centuries. These words are to acknowledge and express gratitude for the Ohlone people who have been living on and working this land for centuries. We know that our work must go beyond words, to stand with Ohlone people and all other First Nations working to protect their land and culture. We recognize the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We also recognize that Ohlone people and many other urban or rural Native communities are alive and thriving today, and our work must include their voices and wisdom in our classrooms and schools and learning spaces. Our solidarity must also extend beyond acknowledgement and towards action. It's important to note that the Ohlone Nation is still not federally recognized. We lift up that Native nations have enduring systems of governance. They are not ethnic groups, they're nations, and that move from a place of sovereignty. Today, in collaboration with T4SJ, we ask that you join us in committing to researching more about the people whose land you, your family, and your students are on. You can start by downloading the Native Land app or going to the website, which identifies some of the Indigenous names of the occupied and stolen lands that we are on. Searching for recent Native reviews of books written by Native authors to inform what we use to teach in our classrooms. Reading articles from the Native American Journalists Association, subscribing and listening to All My Relations or Media Indigena podcasts, advocating for the removal of any Indian mascots in your area, purchasing and reading Why Indigenous Literatures Matter by Daniel Heath Justice, and donating tangible material resources to organizations focused on Indigenous sovereignty and rematriation, such as Sogorea Te Land Trust, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, Black Earth Farms, and Shell Mound Defense Fund.
With that said, y'all, the work that we do also requires your donations and your support. We are absolutely grassroots. We do not take money from other entities and foundations. And being that we are a grassroots nonprofit teacher support and development organization, what your money goes to is making sure that we provide continual opportunities for self-transformation, leadership development, community building for educators and all education stakeholders that want to join us. And so we're really committed to doing things for free, because we can't say that we're committed to radical education if it's not accessible, right? And so in order for it to be free and for it to be accessible to folks, this is where your support is really helpful. And so if you have the means and the ability to leveraging whatever privilege you have to support this ongoing grassroots work, you can actually do so by visiting www.t4sj.org. And we appreciate y'all for all the support that you continue to give to our organization so that we can make things like this happen.
Thanks, Fadi. Yeah, as we get into this, I really want to name that as educators, today we really want to interrogate how schools and learning spaces can be either sites of reproduction of punishment, capitalist, individualist logic, patriarchal violence, ableism, and more, or they can be sites of freedom dreaming, organizing, and liberation. We're closing out an incredibly challenging, transformative year and are reckoning with a lot of painful realities that we have no choice but to face directly into the future. And Today, we want to gather around the ideas, the questions, and freedom dreams of a powerful group of folks. We look to the freedom struggles for climate justice, disability justice, and abolition as interlocked pieces of the world that is possible, the world that we will win. So I wanted to take a second to introduce some of the powerful people that are joining us as we dig into kind of a slightly different format of how we're engaging with folks and their ideas and their wisdoms. I want to take a second to introduce Lizbeth Ibarra and Isha Clarke with Youth versus Apocalypse. Lizbeth and I know each other through our work at the Rice Center, and she is a powerful youth organizer based out of the Richmond, San Pablo area. And Isha Clarke is a powerful youth organizer doing work out of Oakland. They are both a part of Youth versus Apocalypse, a Bay Area-based diverse group of young climate justice activists that work together to amplify the voices of youth, in particular, youth of color, to fight for a livable climate and equitable, sustainable, and just world. Youth versus Apocalypse organizes youth-led actions and brings more young people to the front of the movement.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I also am so honored to introduce the next following folks who will be gracing us with their wisdom and their knowledge. So a lot of folks from the Bay and beyond know Kat Brooks. Kat Brooks is a mama, an activist, an actress, advocate, poet, and performer. She serves as the executive director of the Justice Teams Network, a network of grassroots activists providing rapid response and healing justice in response to all forms of state violence across California. She's also a co-founder of the Anti-Police Terror Project, whose mission through a pioneering first responder process is to rapidly respond to and ultimately eradicate state violence in communities of color. Now, for those of y'all who know Kat, know that Kat is busy on the streets, constantly making sure that the presence is felt from our communities in response to these issues that have been occurring, especially recently. And so Kat actually was able to provide us with a pre-recorded video of some of her thoughts and responses. And so we're looking forward to hearing what she has to say. I also am really honored to introduce Talila A. Lewis, aka TL, who is a community lawyer, consultant, educator, organizer, and artist. TL has been at the cutting edge of critically intersectional thought, education, organizing, advocacy, and litigation that highlights and addresses the nexus between race, class, disability, and other marginalized identities, forced marginalized identities to be specific, and structural inequity for over a decade. TL currently serves as a consultant on various topics, including racial, economic, gender, and disability justice, and as an expert on cases involving deaf and disabled people. So we're just so honored to have TL with us today, as well as Diana Gameros, who is a singer, a songwriter, a music instructor, and activist. Her music reflects the 21st century experiences of an artist at the borderlands between cultures, languages, and genres. Originally from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, Diana moved to the Bay Area in 2008. And since then, Diana has used music as a platform to bring light to her Latinx heritage and to expand the conversation around social justice issues, especially those involving the immigrant community. So thanks y'all for joining us live. Thanks Kat for providing us with your thoughts in advance. We're just so excited to move through this conversation today. So with that said, our conversation is gonna be shaped by these three major questions. I just want to remind us that this conversation is really a culminating conversation from a 3-part series that we've had about humanizing our learning spaces. And so this particular conversation is really thinking about what other world is possible. And we want to begin by thinking about what is it that we've been struggling against and for, right? An additional question is, how can educational spaces be sites of resistance as we work towards abolition? And when we talk about abolition, we're talking about abolition of the prison industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, the nonprofit. I mean, we're talking about all forms of violence that get manifested in these different ways. And so lastly, what we want to do is really think about, imagine that we are at a place where we have won. What does that look, sound, feel, and taste like outside of the limits of oppression, knowing that oftentimes what we are fighting for is in direct relationship to violence and oppression? So what might it look like for us to begin to do the work of imagining the world that we know is possible? And so we want to start by, first just hearing from Kat Brooks, who answered this first question. And so for visual purposes, what you're getting ready to see is a video close-up of Kat Brooks, a Black woman with honey-colored skin, freckles, and long black-brown hair that is in locks, looking into the camera. She wears black eyeliner, silver drop earrings with white beads, and a heather gray top against an off-focus background with lights in the ceiling.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kat Brooks. I am the co-founder of the Anti-Police Terror Project and the executive director of the Justice Teams Network. Very excited to be with you all today. Well, virtually be with you all today, or in a recording be with you all today, but excited that this event is happening and humbled and honored that I was asked to be a part of it. My colleague and comrade, Annie, is gonna ask me questions and then I'm going to answer them. Annie, what am I responding to first?
The first prompt is, what have we been struggling against and for?
Wow, that is a super broad question. And like, who do we mean by we, right? I think broadly, right, we've been struggling against white supremacy and race-based capitalism and US imperialism and the hundreds years long impact of colonization. That's what we've been fighting against. And what I believe we're fighting to build for is a liberated world, right? A place where all of us can thrive. A society that is rooted in humanity and equity and justice and love, and a place where rational things happen, like everybody has a place to live and everybody has food to eat and clothes to wear and can get a quality education and has access to economic opportunity that allow them to build communities to thrive, and where we deconstruct the man-made construction of race and patriarchy. Really, we've been fighting against hate, right, and oppression, and fighting for love and acceptance and equity. And I'm very intentional about the word equity and not equality, right? Equality means we reset and everybody gets the same thing. Equity means that folks that have historically had less, that do have less, that need more to get ahead, get what they need to thrive. And that's the only way actual shifts are gonna happen, is reallocation of resources and the assurance that Black and Brown and Indigenous and poor and queer communities, historically marginalized communities, that we get access to what white folks have had since they kidnapped Black folks and drug us to the shore and stole land from Indigenous people to build the society that they continue to benefit for today, and if we're being completely honest, that we continue to suffer in order for them to benefit from it today.
So we want to move to the next question, but we do also want to highlight and have us really think and sit with that question. Like Kat started off by really pushing us to think, well, wait a minute, who is the we? So really kind of hold on to that as we move on to this this next question and response as well.
I mean, I think educational places are like ground zero, right, for how we teach new ways of being. And so when my daughter was in elementary school, when she started school, I would always say, she would say in her 8-year-old way, that she had to go to school twice, right? So I would send her to the master school and then I come home and fix all the bad shit that they told her. I was the parent where, you know, on the first day, everybody else was asking questions about like, when is nap time? And I was like, do you say the Pledge of Allegiance here? Because I just want to be clear now that like, it's not happening with my kid. So I went into, right, her going to school, of course, with my own baggage, right, from public schools and educational institution and higher ed institutions. But imagine if, you know, instead of learning about World War I and World War II and Vietnam, if we actually spent that time learning about the ways in which our ancestors took care of themselves and how to make plant medicine and how to grow food and how to respect the earth and the white supremacy and how it's not just impacted people of color here, but all over the globe, and what communal living looks like and how to build a co-op. And like, those are the things that our young people should be learning, right? And I'm mortified. My daughter goes to a fairly progressive school, and the things that she doesn't know about, the things that she's never heard of, basic shit, stuns me. And so that, to me, that's what our school should be teaching, along with also just like basic things of how to live, as opposed to all this bullshit that our kids are never gonna learn. But it's important, right, for us to understand that the educational system that we have right now was really cemented to build working people, to support an industrial society, right, and to create worker bees that would support the status quo. And that's not the world we live in anymore. So not only are we not using our educational systems to fuel transformation of how we live and breathe and work and play and exist in the world, which we could and should be doing, we're teaching absolutely useless information to our young people that aren't going to serve them or us or the planet. So it's a huge missed opportunity. And then, of course, you're supposed to be able to get that stuff in college, right? College is where you're supposed to be able to go, and then all of a sudden it's supposed to be all this space for free thought. But you see very clearly, like when Palestinians students are trying to organize, or indigenous students are trying to organize, or, you know, even like the fact that we just had the recent fight in San Francisco SF State about whether or not we're going to keep you know, Black studies, ethnic studies, which people literally bled for, died for, went to jail for. The fact that we just had the ethnic studies fight in K through 12 in the state of California, we had to fight to ensure that that stayed in there. That says a lot about that the ways in which the state is still invested in utilizing this place that they have our kids on lock, right, for 8 hours a day to maintain the status quo of patriarchy, white supremacy, colonization, and all of the things that we're fighting against and trying to dismantle.
So what we wanted,
I mean, I think educational places.
There we go. What we want to do now, y'all, is we want to take a moment to just pause, reflect, and tend to some of these questions that Kat is also pushing us to think more deeply about, because in the spirit of not just taking from these events, we want you to really engage with this. And so the first question we want you to think about is, who are you? And who, or what is it that you're struggling for? And how do your identities connect to, interweave with, and or complicate this struggle that it is that you're fighting for? And thinking of the site in which you are an educator in whatever capacity, how is that space a site of compliance or liberation? And how do you show up in that site? And what role do you play? And so you can actually just pull out your phone. If you have a smartphone, you can open up your camera and just place it over this QR code, and it will take you to a Padlet for you to do some of this reflection. Or there is also some of our T4SJ folks who are going to put the link in the chat for you to access from there as well. And so we're going to take a few minutes to just kind of struggle through some of these questions and reflect together.
I was born with small access to big dreams and detached homes and lazy boy couches with fit thrones that would sit kings, lion statues on the fences larger than the castles they guarded. Lawns made the pastures pristine, the race with the have-nots broke with the moats where the Jags parked, doing dirty work with the whips clean. Notice the Joneses ordered what they have is for the show, and even notices on doors of foreclosures. I'm trying to get income and then some, right around in something. The system bumping, the dish jumping, I'm rolling. A slight high from being able to buy what you shouldn't, but you never do why. Never mind, it's the feeling I've been wanting for time. Flying blind to a wall, strong drawing the shine. I just looked at the pictures. Didn't add a manual to build this, just assembled it for feeling. Looking at pictures. I was given tools meant for building, with no instructions for the wielding. Look at the picture. Ain't even close to the description, and yet it's working as a wish list. Looking at pictures. And even though parts of it are missing, it's still completing the depiction. Started off trying to make a wave, then I made a wave that made a wage that laid a waste the paper chase that I was in the race. But how you even stop this thing? I never learned, so return, I'ma burn out brakes. Spin it faster than it churn out makes, but I'm a phoenix. I went from ashes to classes, shoebox to plastic. Credit come by whatever imagined. Developing habits I can't kick. Man, I was rocking cleats to a match full of baskets. Fast break, broke the safe trying to basket. Sums that wasn't real, but ones and nils and they asking. Debit and credit the latter, please. Climbing into debt without a sweat when it's gradually. Had to make a couple mistakes that I couldn't erase. Overdrawn, but I turned out great. I just looked at the pictures. Didn't add a manual to build this, just assembled it for feeling. Looking at pictures. I was given tools meant for building, with no instructions for the wielding. Look at the picture. Ain't even close to the description, and yet it's working as a wish list. Looking at pictures. And even though parts of it are missing, it's still completing the depiction. I maneuver by example, good or bad, try against a trample. Something I couldn't grasp but wouldn't pass. I would rather struggle assembling what I can do. Look at that, a little different, but the difference is make it what it isn't. Is whatever I want to witness. Behold the vision outside of the city limits, where time is more value than money for the spending. Ascending to deeper things, never knew reasoning. Throwing random spices in the life of the seasoning. Without a silver spoon, I couldn't taste what I was prepping. My guesses made the wooden whip a problem to a question. Why do my people spend more and have less? And no seat to eat the meal that we responsible for chefing. Imagine in the window was just a mirror reflection. I turned the sideline into a seat at the concession. I just looked at the pictures. Didn't add a manual to build this, just assembled it for feeling. Looking at pictures. I was given tools meant for building, with no instructions for the wielding. Look at the picture. Ain't even close to the description, and yet it's working as a wish list. Looking at pictures. And even though parts of it are missing, it's still completing the depiction.
future, past and envisioning. Dream of flying away. Try to escape the sky. Feel blue but don't know why. Nightmares all over. Dreams falling from me. Down here in the bottom, there ain't no room for me. I don't wanna make no babies. I don't need a man to save me. Secondhand loneliness, pass on over me. I might wanna make some babies. Running out of time for waiting. Freedom and triumph, they weren't meant for me. Girls of my color, find something else to be. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. Up here in the bottom, you linger over me. I got all the space to fill. Something only bodies heal. Promiscuous holiness, slope is slippery. I got all this time to kill. Something like a prayer to kneel to. Lay on my pillow, you think I'm so weak. Soft as my skin is, my power's discreet. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better.
Hi, folks. Welcome back. Welcome back. So I wanted to bring us back together and actually get our guests on screen. So I'm inviting Lizbeth and Isha and TL to come off of kind of the back end hiding place, and so we can all see y'all's faces. And as we kind of move from the Padlet space and digest, really inviting folks to spend time, come back to that tool and that digital community, thinking about how complex our identities are, and also the identity makeup of our community of educators. Really sitting with what are we struggling with as a community of educators? What are all the kind of identities and places of power and privilege? and subjugation that we move this work from. So please definitely encourage y'all to come back into it, and the lifelong process of self-examining how does our positionality impact the world that we build. But I wanted to turn it over to Lizbeth and Isha, our very excited guests, to speak a little bit to kind of just who they are real quick. And I'd love for y'all to introduce kind of this next piece too.
Hey everyone. Oh yeah, I can start and then I'll pass it to you. Hey everyone, my name is Lizbeth Ibarra. I'm a part of Youth vs. Apocalypse Lead Circle, and I just do a lot of other work with the campaigns that Lead Circle is a part of, and I'm really excited to be here. I'll pass it to Isha.
Hey y'all, my name is Isha. I am born, raised, and educated in the town. And yeah, I am one of the co-founders of Youth vs. Apocalypse. And in a second, we'll be showing you our most recent music video and original song that we made that went along with our first national campaign called This Is the Time. And in that campaign, we were trying to mobilize youth under the age of 18 who couldn't vote to call on adult allies in their community to take a pledge saying that they will do everything in their power to fight to leave us a livable and just society. And so this campaign kind of came about through conversations that we were having within YVA, trying to really make sense of this crazy time that we were living in, where there's just all of these crises, one after another, that we're experiencing. And there was a moment in our conversation where we realized that all of these crises that we were experiencing were, one, a direct result of the crumbling of our unsustainable foundation of white supremacy and colonialism and patriarchy and capitalism. And that because of that, we have this unique opportunity to do the work that our ancestors have been trying to do for hundreds of years, which is to dismantle that faulty foundation of these systems of oppression and build something new in its place that is based in equity and humanity and justice and true sustainability. And so though we were experiencing these really scary times, it's pre-election, not to say that post-election isn't scary too, but it was pre-election, and there's just so much going on, and yet we found this optimism, this radical optimism. So that is where this video comes from. I hope you enjoy things.
Get up and go, get up and vote. We only at a time when we lose hope. It's time to fight, we have the power. When they try to silence us, we just speak louder. This is the time to take control. Stand up, show up, play your role. It's time to fight, we have the power. When they try to silence us, we just speak louder.
It's time to fight cause we have the power. And when they try to silence us, we just speak louder. So I'ma keep on fighting till you see my power. Not gonna break down but build a better tower. Cause I'm a bright flame and never less than ember. And I'ma keep on till a last endeavor. And we can save lives, be allies, save our planet together.
Get up and fight, it's time to make the world right. This is a long time coming, we've been fighting since the genocide of the native people. Then they stole my folk off the mother soil. Look outside, this the time. If we don't fight now, then we won't survive. Act
for your ancestors, I'm acting for mine. If it wasn't for their might, this wouldn't be the time.
Get up and go, get up and vote. We only out of time when we lose hope. It's time to fight, we have the power. When they try to silence us, we just speak louder.
I'm the one who gets targeted by racism, sexism, violence. But most of all, white silence. From the lowlands to the highlands. Come on, y'all, we can do better than that. Let it be known, it's in your bones. Use your vote for a good razón.
El poder está en las palmas de tus manos, es bien claro, hay que aprender a usarlo, a votar, ahí nos vamos. Get up and go, get up and go. No matter how you do it, but you're voting for the earth. Voting for the people who ain't got a chance to vote. Deprived for the matter, cause they're scared about my vote. You talk about collective liberation and show the support. Been having conversations like you're ready to implore. To save the world, we can't do it alone. So pick your butt up and pull up to the polls.
Get up and go, get up and vote.
Votar es importante. Había mucha gente que no lo podía hacer antes. Las mujeres y la gente de color salieron a la calle, protestaron con valor. Mucha gente marcharon, mucha gente peleó por el derecho de votar. Mucha gente murió, so dime tú, ¿cómo se sentirían si su esfuerzo fue en vano? Ellos lucharon, pero el derecho no lo utilizamos. Hay que votar, tenemos que sacar al presidente actual de la Casa Blanca. Tu voz tiene que abusar, no te puedes callar. Recuérdale a tu vecino, juntos lo vamos a lograr.
We left to spend billions of dollars on weapons and call it protection. Fossil fuels, chopping trees, these are the weapons. Oceans rising like my anxiety. Increase in heat, increasing my thoughts, I cannot think. I am impatient. I want to live in a nation where my leaders actually lead. They see our lungs are being filled with the last breath from burning trees. Drowning in ashes, more flames than people. Soon the ratio between living things and air will be unequal. Is this the world you want us to live in? You say I'm so inspirational, sit in a seat of power, and still create no change. I don't just want to be inspirational. I want you to do what we demand.
Woo! Snap it up, y'all. Snap it up. That was deeply powerful, and I want to invite all of us as we're metabolizing that. Fadi, you know, come off and come on screen, and we're gonna just dig into this conversation.
Y'all really just hit us with so much knowledge and so much brilliance. And I want to just start off by kind of saying and bringing us into this full conversation that really this is an intergenerational conversation. Y'all ended that video so powerfully by saying, we don't just want to inspire y'all. That's not what we came here to do. Like, we're not just trying to hype y'all up. We want you to meet our demands. And so I'm really grateful for you all naming that and being so bold in the ways that you share this knowledge. So if we can just kind of highlight and remind us of this first question, which is who, you know, like, what is it that we've been struggling against and for, which I think y'all did so beautifully in your introduction. TL, if you wouldn't mind gracing us in this conversation, also in relationship to our powerful Lizbeth and Isha in this conversation, what is it that we are, you know, and have been struggling against and for?
Hey, this is TL. Just a quick image description. I'm a gender non-conforming person, Black, circle glasses. I have a button-up shirt that kind of looks like it's like a blue jean and a black over shirt sweater. I'm seated in front of a bookshelf with plants behind me and a kind of white and a gray wall meeting each other in the middle. Yeah, thanks for this invitation. My brain is moving. I really appreciated the artistry, the effort, the energy that the young people put into that piece, and to just organizing, not even just that, because I know it's just organizing, you know, well beyond that music and that art that they're offering. So we really just want to uplift y'all and offer thanks. I also heard you all talking about our ancestors and that you're really just carrying on their legacy that continues to live in us and will live in future generations as well. And I want to just honor and name that as well before I begin. So I'm just feeling all sorts of excitement about that. And now, because my brain is so all over the place, I'm going to ask you, Farima, to please restate the question for me.
All good, TL. Thank you so much. So what we're really thinking about is, what is it that we have been and still are struggling against and for?
Yeah, this is TL. I appreciate that restatement. And there's a lot of things, and I don't want to overwhelm. So Farima, I'm going to invite you to, when you feel like there's enough offered into this space, just feel free to interject, like raise your hand. I have a visual that you want me to pause, and that might be the best way to do it. But I'm going to try to collapse some of the things that are on my heart and mind in this moment. So the first is erasure. Erasure of a lot of things, of identities. So what do I mean by that? Despite the fact that the vast majority of the folks affected by all forms of violence and deprivation are in fact racially marginalized people or negatively racialized people and disabled because of the ways that deprivation and violence and oppression affect the body and mind of people, we often erase disability identities. That's just one example. So I'll put that out, erasure. But erasure also of the violences themselves. So on July 4th of this year, 2020, I shared a piece that I had been writing for like 7 years that has just been like traumatizing me for too many years. And every time Indigenous, Black, Latinx person was killed by the state, in this particular instance, by lynchings or vigilante violence and or policing violence, which I say are all the same, which is a whole other conversation for another day, I would add a piece to this piece that I'm working on. It's on my blog. And what I try to work through in that piece is how the United States itself has for eras created categories of people, intentionally deprived people within those categories of things like safety, food, water, any other thing that folks, familial ties, all the things that we as humans need to survive and thrive, and then have blamed us for our own natural responses to their violences and deprivations. So in that particular piece, I was talking in particular about the response to Black, Indigenous, negatively racialized folks to policing systems and vigilante violence. Probably most of the folks who are on this screen have a particular feeling when law enforcement is around. That is because we have been terrorized for generations, right? And the natural response to that feeling that we don't even have a name for often is freezing or running or fighting. All of those are valid. And yet they've been criminalized, deemed insanities, are used as ways to justify our premature murders by the state and vigilantes and corporations and the likes. But then there's this erasure of their violences. Like, how can we, for generations, all of us having the same, my parents, their parents, you know, and then my kids and their kids and their kids having the same feeling, and to be gaslit in such a way that people just don't even acknowledge that there's a reason for our natural responses and that all of those natural responses are valid. And then related to that erasure, I try to keep things grounded in what our young folks were naming as our ancestors. Drapetomania might be something that folks aren't familiar with. This was a manufactured disability that allegedly could only be had by Black enslaved people during the time of enslavement here in the US context. And the argument by white eugenicists, these were scientists who believed that certain groups of people were inherently superior than other groups of people. So namely Black folks, Indigenous folks, Latinx folks. Obviously at that time, that that framework of race and ethnicity didn't even exist. All of these things are constructed, but believed that those groups were inherently inferior, and that white, European, people with particular facial shapes, etc., were inherently superior intellectually and in every other way than all of these other marginalized groups. So drapetomania was this pseudoscience diagnosis that said that Black folks who thought about freedom, not attempted to escape enslavement, but quite literally just thought about resisting, or literally had a disability, a mental disability, and an insanity. And simultaneously, it wasn't just deemed a mental illness or a disability, it was deemed criminal. And so when we think about things like resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and all of these other manufactured crimes or strange behaviors, when you think about how often white people, I'll be blunt about it, respond to Black, Indigenous responses to police. Well, why didn't they just put their hands up? Why didn't they just do what the police told them to do? Why didn't? Instead of like, why'd they shoot? Why'd they kill? Why haven't you trained your people not to kill our children? Right? Those are the questions, but those aren't asked. And that's the pathologization of our natural resistance to violence, to deprivation of our freedom and liberation, to deprivation of resources, and so on and so forth. So erasure is the thing I'll put out, and I'll pause for a moment. And I'm going to turn another light on so I have better lighting here. Go ahead.
TL, Lizbeth, Isha, y'all just completely like gave us such rich foundation to think about and to build from. So I wanna see if maybe we can have this conversation together now as we think about how, y'all, we know that schools are microcosms of the inequitable society that we occupy, right? That we were brought into. The things that you just named right now, TL, also, like, I think about how often we do this in schools, how the inner police within teachers and administrators and other folks in education sometimes respond in these really violent ways when young people want to be free, when young people are resisting the state violence that manifests in our school spaces, right, in our education spaces. So I would love for y'all to maybe speak to one another, speak to each other, speak to us as a community to really think about how can educational spaces be sites of resistance as we work towards abolition, right? As we work towards the abolition of all forms of violence that are being inflicted upon our communities. Maybe we could start with our young folks, because y'all navigate, y'all in the belly of the beast. So let us know.
Okay, I can start this conversation off. I'll introduce myself again. My name is Lizbeth Ibarra. Just so y'all can know what I look like. I'm caramel skin. I have black, dark, wet hair. I'm wearing big glasses, and I'm wearing a light blue shirt. And I think the way that schools can be, can you repeat the question, please, actually?
Absolutely. How can educational spaces be sites of resistance as we work towards abolition?
Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna kind of be talking like what comes to mind, but places of education, they can be sites of resistance when it comes to abolition, because school is kind of where it all starts, like we start from like preschool, kindergarten, and we're just like nonstop going to school. And I find that, like, personally, I have a lot of what I've learned, or a lot of my identity that I have formed has come from school, because that's where I spent most of my time. Or also, I feel like that's very similar for a lot of students, because not everyone, when they come home from school, not everyone has their parents home. So even though, like when it comes to education, like progressive education, not everyone has access to that. So school is kind of like what paves the way for, I guess, our lives. And I feel like, I guess what I feel is that, like, we're all, like, at school, we're taught, like, well, we're going to school so we can keep going to school when we're done with this. And then when we're done with that, we can keep working and working and working so we can have basic necessities. And I feel like maybe because I'm in a school that's like filled with students that look like me, I don't know if it's just like schools like mine that are taught this, because I feel like we're kind of taught, like people of color, Black Indigenous people of color are taught that, well, like when you're done with school, all that there is to life is to work and to work and to work. Because for us, basic necessities aren't accessible. For us, it's either you go to school and you end up in the streets, or they tell us that you're going to end up in the streets and you're going to end up, you know, going to prison if you don't continue your education and try to find a good job. But a lot of the times, like, those good jobs include working for the bare minimum and working for healthcare, which should be free, for housing, which isn't accessible to everyone, and for basic necessities. So I'm kind of losing my train of thought, and I'm not really sure if I completely answered the question all the way, but I'll pass it to Isha now.
Girl, you definitely did. We're speaking some truth. Hey y'all, again, I'm Isha. I use she, her pronouns. I have long curly hair, and I have some, I would consider medium-sized silver hoops on, and I am sitting in a lavender room with some, you know, I got that one land, one people sign, the Black Panthers and Rosie the Riveter up there. So little, this is my space, but anywho, first of all, thank you, Lizbeth, for that. And I feel like my brain is wanting to take me in a couple different directions. So let's see how much I can fit into this. But I think the first thing we need to recognize is, because we are living in a society in which the foundation is literally the kidnapping and enslavement of African people and the attempted genocide of Indigenous people. When the foundation of our society, when everything that has grown in this country, quotation marks, has grown from that soil of white supremacy and patriarchy and colonialism and capitalism, every space in which we come together will inevitably be saturated with those systems of oppression, because it's in every single piece of our society. And so, you know, we have to do the work in every single space that we're in as human beings in this country, this so-called country, to be anti those systems. Because if we don't, then we will be complacent. So, you know, that goes for schools, that goes for our workplace, that goes for our friend groups, that goes for, you know, a simple trip to the grocery store, like, you know, like every single piece of our lives is deeply saturated in those systems of oppression. And so are our schools. And so I think, you know, another thing that popped into my mind when you said that is you said educational sites. And I feel like when we're in this time where our schools are not sites, but rather like in our homes on computer screens, like in this, our world, our reality is shifting so much. You know, the school system as it is right now, or I would argue as it is, you know, right before we went virtual, was, you know, based in the Industrial Revolution. And like Kat Brooks said earlier, we were cranking out worker bees, you know, to uphold the status quo, to uphold this conditioning, these systems of oppression. And, you know, that is not the world that we live in anymore. And then further, like, we're not in the same reality world that we were 7 months ago, 8 months ago. Like, we're staring at computer screens, and, you know, people are obsessed with like trying to keep young people on track and educated, but like, we are surviving a pandemic, you know, and like on top of that, we are surviving our daily experience of racism and misogyny and, you know, all of these systems of oppression that we are constantly bombarded with. And so I think that the first thing we need to do in this moment when we're talking about education and how we can resist sorry, my blinds are all in my face, how we can resist these systems of oppression in our schools, we first need to like completely shift the way that we're understanding this very moment that we're in. Like we're living in a global pandemic in which people are losing their jobs, are not able to pay for housing or for food, for these basic necessities that, like, how dare you expect us to be on the computer? And I'll be honest saying I'm in a gap year right now. I was not doing that. But many young people are sitting here expected to be sitting at this computer, cranking out assignments all day long as if we were sitting in a classroom building where we're sitting in our homes, sometimes like 1-2 bedroom apartments with 2 families in it. Like, this is people's reality. We are surviving right now, like, how dare you, So like, there are so many layers in which we need to resist and which we need to liberate our school system. But I think the most important thing to talk about right now is that how do we shift our mind frame around the expectations for young people and students in school?
This is TL. Yeah, y'all are on fire. So I'm gonna pull together what both of you just talked about without naming the word ableism. This idea that people have to produce, that our only value in this society is how much we contribute, how much schooling we have, how many degrees someone has, how long you could sit in front of the computer and focus for however many hours in front of some boring professor or teacher. All of that is actually ableism, right? And so when we go back to my original point, which was erasure, it's also erasure of abled supremacy, which you can't have any of those systems of oppression that Lizbeth and Isha mentioned, patriarchy, misogyny, misogynoir, capitalism, all of those require ableism at the heart, racism, because this idea that there are people who are invaluable, unworthy. It's the assignment of value to people and our children in the educational spaces based on productivity, based on behavior, perceived normalcy, and all of that. And so abled supremacy has to be undone in tandem with white supremacy, because you can't undo those two things. And so for all of these generations, folks have been talking about white supremacy and have really taken out the heart of that, which is ableism. And that's why we've been spinning our wheels for so long, because we're fighting this thing and it seems like it's that thing. But the dangerous part about ableism is that it's like a chameleon. It turns into whatever it needs to be in the particular moment to exploit, oppress, incarcerate, and murder our communities that have been intentionally made vulnerable, intentionally deprived of resources and access. So that's the thing that I think that both of you are naming, that often the language has not been provided to us in our society. And that is because ableism is in fact so pervasive. It is at the heart of all of these things that are causing us harm and violence. It's the reason why our government didn't say, here, everyone, here's your guaranteed basic income. Stop showing up in the stores. Stop showing up at school. We want to make sure you all have all that you need in this particular moment and moving forward to survive and thrive. That was the moment. And we still have the opportunity to do that. We still don't have to be accepting of the educational spaces that exist currently. We can dismantle them and build whatever we think is ripe and right for our individual and collective communities. And so I want to end there and offer it back to you all.
Word.
I think one of the beautiful things that all of you do so well is that you also create alternative educational spaces, knowing that our education system cannot be necessarily the only space or even a space to do this kind of work, right? To really interrogate these systems, to really unpack what it means to exist outside of capitalist logics, carceral logics, thinking about how schools are very much part of the school prison nexus, right? All of the different carceral logics. You know, TL, you speak a lot to this idea of freedom privilege in relationship to the quote unquote foster care system, to the prison system, right? Would you mind just naming a little bit of how you think about, even just in the context of educators on this call, how to think more deeply and critically interrogate our own freedom privilege?
This is TL. Freedom is fluid. So that's the first thing I want to begin with. This is something that I've been like working through for years and years and years. So our education spaces at present are carceral. And that is something that we really have to sit with and understand, particularly marginalized folks' education spaces are carceral, right? Like there are well-to-do people with resources who have their children, their students, free learning, whatever that looks like for their communities. And that's great. And we want to do that too. We deserve that same thing. So that's the first thing. But freedom privilege is the idea of those of us who are in this space right now. As I initially conceived of it, it was talking in particular about people in carceral spaces. So that's psychiatric hospitals, jails and prisons, other places and spaces where people physically cannot get out. But I want folks to think more expansively about that as we work through this conversation, because there are places like ghettos and hoods and reservations and other spaces that have been intentionally made not free. And still you have freedom privilege as related to other people, right? And so it's the same concept of even the folks in the US context who are at the bottom rung of our caste system here and our class system still are imperialists because we are in the US and because of the ways in which imperialism operates. So I think I'm just trying to complicate that. I don't want people to make this simpler than it actually is. And in the educational context, what that means is we have to evaluate how are the carceral logics, the things about, Farima, you mentioned it earlier, ordering children around, punishing our youth, our students, making demands on how people should think, process, engage, respond, what languages people should use and not use, how someone's posture should look, what looking someone in the eye does or does not mean. Like all of those things are quite literally carceral logics that have been embedded inside of us because, like able supremacy and white supremacy, punitive and punishment and carceral things have been embedded into, unfortunately, the heart of even the youngest among us. And so I think that when we're thinking through what ableism and carcerality and white supremacy look like in the educational spaces, thinking about how are you free that your children in your class are not? Why is it that you get to eat and they do not? Why is it that you get to roam around, you get to turn your screen off, but they should be on all the time, right? Like, how is it that you are engaging in the world? What is it okay for you to do that's all of a sudden not okay with these young folks or students to do? And why is that, right? And so one of the things I did when I was an educator, I am now no longer in the formal educating space because of all the things, but I didn't give tests to my students, and I didn't call my students, I called them my co-learners, because I was learning from them, they were learning from me, right? We had a classroom community that wasn't based on, authority and dominance, but that was based on mutual respect and love, like literally love. We use that word in the classroom, right? And so really just rethinking and dislodging those really problematic, violent carceral urges that often we don't even realize we are engaged in, because we think, oh, I'm an elder, I'm a professor, I'm a teacher, I'm a teacher's assistant, or what, name the thing you are. That doesn't give you any right to assert dominance over someone who is labeled a student. So I think it's really just challenging that in ourselves. Go ahead.
Freedom is fluid. Freedom is fluid. I'm still sitting with that, and this idea of negotiating who is and isn't allowed freedom. God, I wish we could sit here for like 15 hours and jam into this, but I wanted to move us into the next part of the conversation. And I'm thinking about Lizbeth and Isha. Y'all did so much to really speak to the bedrock of plunder that, like, that schooling is built on, right? That genocide and theft and chattel slavery. And I think all three of y'all spoke to against those daily indignities and metrics of compliance, that there are daily acts of abolition, right? Like when we negotiate who has what freedom and how do we extend that freedom to more people, the daily acts of abolition that can chart us out of those places. So thinking about how do we move into those places and lift up those daily acts of abolition, I want to move us into the big question and the most difficult question in some ways, and the living question of we are in a place where we have won, right? We are freedom dreaming this place in which we have won. And what does that look, sound, taste, and feel like outside of the limits of oppression, both in the minutiae of those daily acts of abolition and in the grand schema of having undone all of those things that ensnare us, right? The ableism, capitalism, the mandated production, the indignities. So I want to bring Kat back and let us kind of sit with some of Kat's wisdom, and then we'll come back into a group discussion, if that feels good. And working slides too, so now I gotta find my window and everything, my goodness.
We grassroots, y'all.
We're multitasking. All right, here we are. How do I get this full screen?
I love and hate this question all at the same time, right? I love it in like group spaces and we're doing collective visioning, because I love to hear what, you know, other freedom fighters and my comrades dream about. But it's also hard because I don't think we really know, right? It's sort of like trying to grasp the breadth of the universe, right? I close my eyes and imagine all I want to, but I'm never going to be able to understand that amount of space and time and distance. And so my answer is always like, it tastes like freedom. And I know freedom is what I'm fighting for, and I have no fucking idea what it tastes like. And except for I hold it akin to maybe, you know, getting to the top of a mountain after a hike, or being in the middle of the ocean, or, you know, when you think that's what freedom tastes like. I mean, I think it looks like a lot of work for a lot of years, because I feel like even if let's say we won tomorrow, right? Let's say that we overthrew the powers that be, then we've got to build, right? And we've got to build together, and we've got to build, and we've got to relearn how to build, because all of us are programmed to build the thing that built this thing that we're trying to take down and destroy in the first place, right? And so there's a lot of recalibrating of the way that we think and move and would want to govern and organize. All of that stuff has to be deconstructed and reconstructed. And that's another reason why I don't know. I know it looks the polar opposite of what we have right now. I mean, I wonder about it like in my work is very attached to policing, right? And I get in trouble with people with this, and that's fine. We're gonna have to have something, right? It's not, we can't have nothing. There are definitely people that are walking the planet that need to not be in close spaces with the rest of us, right? That's just facts. And even that I blame on white supremacy and the state, right? All violence is state violence, and it's the evils and the trauma created by the systems that we live under that create people that require us to have something. but I know that something is not going to look like what we have today, right? Like I know that that something is going to try to get to the root causes of things as opposed to being having a punitive carceral response. I know that even for people that do the most abhorrent things in the world, I don't envision them living in the conditions that people live in now, right? There's another way to treat that soul that maybe needs to leave and come back again. I think it looks like not having Black parents not having to give the talk, right? Like me not being terrified every time my daughter leaves. I think it looks like raw and pure acceptance of all, right? And imagine that, and you can't, right? Like even the folks that are part of this, right? Like you have shit too, right? There are thoughts you have and conditioning you have, and I mean, I have to course correct my crazy brain all the time. I hate that phrase, decolonize your mind, but that's what that's what we have to do every day. And so I think it'd be a lot of that. It'd be a lot of figuring out how we decolonize our minds and our practices and the way we live and engage and communicate and connect. And we all have a lot of healing to do. And so that's what I see. It's like we win, and then we've got like decades of healing to do as we build. And maybe the actual building doesn't happen until that healing happens, because like I said, we just end up replicating what exists now.
So sitting with that, I'd love for us to gather again around this last idea or last question. What does that place, what does that other world look like, sound like, feel like, and taste like, beyond the limits of oppression, knowing that we're not going to answer that question fully here in this space, and that it's an ongoing process that we can't close, right? I want to invite you all to speak to that. I'd love to hear from the young folks to really chart that freedom dream first.
The feeling of freedom? That's the question. See, I really appreciated how Mama Cat answered that question, because I feel like it's something that I'm asked, not a lot, but when I am, I'm like, I don't know how the hell to answer this. Like what? And I'm like, I become mad at myself, because I'm like, you can't achieve what you can't see. And but I don't know, I think that's kind of real, that like we have lived in this, conditioned society for hundreds of years. Our ancestors have lived in that and have passed down the trauma of that to us. And so, it's hella hard to imagine what a society like that without that looks like, and I want to do that more. But I think in this moment for me, having just said that, one of the things that I think we need in order to get there, and we'll need to keep doing, is really like implementing systemic practices of healing from trauma, whether that be caused by, internalized oppression, interpersonal oppression, or systemic oppression. And, I think that for me, freedom, looks like being able to go out at night by myself and walk around with my headphones on and know that I am safe and taken care of by my community that surrounds me. Freedom looks like, not being like so afraid for all of the Black boys that I love in my life, for, not having to fear being in a car with them, to not, just I want, this is like, I want to live in a society in which everyone is truly respected and treated with humanity and equity, and that, you know, we don't have to talk about these things like this, that like it should not be a conversation around, you know, whether or not everyone has their basic human necessities, you know, like I want to go beyond that. I don't want to be talking about survival anymore. I want to be talking about what it looks like to thrive. And to me, you know, that is what freedom looks like. And I think it's been important for me in my work to remind myself that resistance is forever. Fighting for freedom is forever. And we will forever have to have these conversations. You know, we will forever be fighting. That is the nature of our reality. And, you know, it doesn't mean that we stop or get discouraged. And it doesn't mean that we don't deserve all of the things that we're talking about, because we do. And when we achieve those things, there will be more things to achieve, more things to, you know, be looking forward to and fighting for. So, yeah, I hope that was good enough of an answer.
That's real. Lizbeth, do you want to add to that conversation as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really good question, and it made me, while like Isha was talking and while I was listening to the video, it made me think a lot. And I feel like it's not necessarily, I know it's something that we're always fighting for, and this, like, all the work that we do is for freedom, but it's something I never really think about, like, well, what does it actually look like when we reach freedom? And I think, like, getting there and even being there, like, obviously there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of educating, but also so much unlearning and so much healing, and, you know, so much like to reflect on and so many wounds to heal. And I think living in a free world would be living in a world where people aren't treated as disposable, and where people are respected and loved, and people are treated like the human beings they are, like people. And I think that when I think about freedom, I think about, like, living in a free world means that there's no debate on if someone lives or not, or if someone's life was worthy once they've passed, or no debate on, like, what people can choose to do with their bodies or not. Just, like, no debating on other people's lives, because it's other people's lives. And I think living in a free world, I know it's like, it's just a lot to think about, and it's a lot to continue, like, thinking about and continuing to imagine. So I think that I still need to do a lot of thinking and imagining on what freedom looks like, but I know that it's definitely not the world that we're living in right now. And I'll pass it to TL.
Yeah, this is TL. I think we need our dreams affirmed. And we need to be encouraged to dream. So Kaite Davidson, K-I''Tay, last name Davidson, D-A-V-I-D-S-O-N, sign name 8 finger on the heart, has a quote that says, "Dream!" ! You were meant to be courageous. And there has to be an acknowledgement of the fact that dream work is work, and it's hard work, especially because of what Isha mentioned, the conditioned society that we live in, and what Lizbeth also mentioned about the determinations being removed from people. So self-determination is no more in our society because of all the things that are going on. So I think it's important to name that. And connecting this back to our ancestors, you'll find in a lot of my thought and work and writings, Frederick Douglass is constantly coming up. And that's because Frederick Douglass was a dreamer and a doer and a lover and all the things. And just before abolition of enslavement, so at that time, freedom was freedom from enslavement and other violences. Abolition was on the horizon, just as it is right now. Abolition of carcerality is on the horizon, and we have to name that continuously, or it is no more. Abolition of enslavement was on the horizon. And a lot of abolitionists were talking to Frederick Douglass and saying, you know, yes, you know, we've achieved our goal, or at least it's right here. We're almost there. Great job. Let's, you know, we can disband. And Frederick Douglass, in all his wisdom, said, no, now we have to be more vigilant than ever before. And the quote of his that I offer up often when people think that freedom is a destination and not like this continuous journey is, he said, in what new skin will the old snake come forth? And so because of what Kat Brooks was mentioning, that if we're like, oh, hey, we got it, and we get comfortable, then more things come about, right? We can never get comfortable. Freedom is always going to have to be fought for. And we have to be comfortable in knowing that. And for me right now, freedom would be rest. I want to rest. I want to, and like heart, body, mind, spirit, bone, rest. Like for the ancestors, because we just been going nonstop for generations. And that's wild to think about. And it's wild that people would not think that our communities don't have disabilities as a result of inability to rest. If nothing else, like forget all the other violences, going is a cause and consequence of disabilities. And there's nothing wrong with disability. So it's a naming of how we acquire these disabilities. And it's a figuring out of how to provide human accommodations to ourselves and our loved ones for not just that going, but all the other things that are cause, consequence, and exacerbator of disabilities within all of our marginalized communities. So those are my thoughts on that.
Y'all, good Lord. I just gotta say, I wanna excavate some of the incredible things that you all just taught us within this short amount of time. But what I wanna lift up is how both Isha and Lizbeth were really kind of naming the importance of healing work. Healing work and dreaming work, which TL just reminded us, is work. It's labor. It is space and time that needs to be honored. It needs to be created. It needs to be worked through. But when we are in sites and educational sites that block us those opportunities to do that very important rest work, that very important healing work, that very important dreaming work, then we are destined to continue to be cogs in a machine that wants us to produce. And so what I'm hearing you all saying in your visions of freedom is really creating that space to do that very important work. What you said, Isha, you said, I understand that we can't achieve what we can't see. And that really just shifted my spirit of like, yeah, we got to do some of that imagination work, because it's very difficult to know what it can exist as if it's not even in our imaginations first. Makes me think about my mentor, Sean Ginwright, when he speaks on, you know, oppression doesn't only impact us as blocked opportunities in society. It literally robs us of our ability to see beyond the oppression, to see what can exist outside of these confines. And so I want to say thank you, Drew Boo, as I call him. Is there anything you want to lift up in this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this entire conversation has been such a blessing, and I'm really sitting with, you know, how have we sat with like, what is our individualized experiences of freedom, right? Freedom as a fluid experience. And then also this idea of like structural snakes, right? That can come and show up in different skin and new skin. And I'm also thinking about how can that, when we are tasked with survival, when we are tasked with maintaining, or both as the implementer of compliance or having to be compliant, how do we take on new skin and ourselves foreclose that horizon line of abolition? Like, what is, if I'm not resting, right? How am I foreclosing my own imagination and allowing that system, that survival to close off those possibilities? And I'm watching the clock, and I want to invite, you know, Lizbeth and TL and Isha, like, what are the things that you all do as daily practices of freedom dreaming? Like, where are we charting out, protecting that space? Because right now I'm like, shoot, do I do that? And am I doing it enough? So I'd love for you all to give us that. And then we got some homework for the audience.
Y'all are coming with the hard questions. I mean, I ask myself that very question every single day, you know, and I really don't want to. I think something that I'm working on is really trying to be hella honest in the way that I like represent myself when I'm speaking to people, because like I am not a perfect person, you know, and I am a human being that is living as a conditioned being, you know, in an oppressive society. And like, I every day have to challenge myself, you know, and, you know, that was both like something to tell y'all and also like an affirmation for myself, because I really need to remind myself that. And TL brilliantly said something earlier, which is like, that ableism is, you know, our value in society being based on our productivity. And I think that is something that I have been struggling with so much lately, you know, feeling like I need to just sit on the computer for 7 hours straight and just crank it out, you know, because right now I'm taking a gap year and I'm working full time with Youth versus Apocalypse. And so it feels like, you know, the work that I'm doing every day is about life or death, you know, it's about like just, you know, humanity and the fate of the world, quite literally, you know. And I need to remind myself that part of the work that I'm doing, part of the work that I have dedicated myself to is practicing, you know, abolition, fighting back against these systems of oppression that I have internalized as well, you know. And part of that is really creating the space for myself to say, fuck the ableism, fuck the capitalism, fuck the patriarchy. I'm not going to sit here for 7 hours straight and, you know, do this, whatever the hell I'm doing, working on a Google Doc or freaking emails, you know, whatever it is. And so, you know, I think really literally all of this I'm saying right now is such an affirmation for myself right now. And I think that after this call, I really am going to rededicate myself to that and know that that is my work. And I really call to all of you and encourage you to do that as well. Because as we said before, you know, resistance is forever. This work is forever. And so we need to sustain ourselves.
I just want to thank Isha for saying that. I feel like I relate to a lot of what you said. But also like I just want to add on a little bit to what you said, like especially when it comes to like the work that we do and being quote unquote productive or meeting deadlines and all those kinds of things. I feel like it's really important to remind yourself, and sometimes like I need to constantly remind myself um like for me, I'm doing climate justice work and I'm trying to take care of the planet and I'm trying to take care of other people. But it's like, if I don't take care of myself, how do I expect to take care of other people? How do I expect to take care of the planet? And I feel like it's also something that you have to remind yourself a lot, because you know you're doing so much work and you're doing so much organizing and it's draining, but sometimes we let it take over our lives, and you got to remember that you got to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, this is TL. Absolutely. Taking care of yourself is taking care of others and is taking care of the planet, right? And so it's about reconnecting ourselves, embodying everything, which is what our ancestors have taught us, right? We didn't behave in these ways until abled and white supremacy came and kind of uprooted our roots, but it's like rerooting yourselves in what we already know. We know what the ancestors knew, and we know that they dreamed of things that no one thought could exist. That's why we are here, those of us who are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and otherwise negatively racialized. Like, you exist because somebody existed you up. You don't just magically appear here. There was resistance, there was dreaming, there was freedom work, there was active work, there was praying, there was all of those things were happening, right? And so I think it's yeah, it's a lot of work. I'm still struggling to be frank. And I just, I received what you just offered, Lizbeth, about collective and individual care. And I appreciate you putting that into the space. It's so critically important. But I think it's also about, for educational purposes, it's like encouraging young folks to dream. Often it's like, based on the policies that you see in place, what do you think is possible in the governmental context of whatever you're talking about? You're like, no, like, imagine this doesn't exist. What would be the perfect situation for Indigenous folks to get their land back and to help, you know, that's what the framing has to be, right? And so often people, adults in particular, are like, here's what we have, what do you think? And I'm like, here's what we have, bump that, like, what are you dreaming? And like, how do we encourage that? And then how do we affirm those dreams? So even just saying to people, we can live outside of what exists here is a powerful thing. And for young folks whose brains and hearts are already malleable and just like starving for something better, it's a gift. So I don't understand why we're still having the same conversations with young folks or in classroom spaces or whatever you'd like to call them, that are based on what we currently have. And I guess it goes back to what Lizbeth and Isha said, which was like this robotic, like, here's what you do, here's what you don't do, then you graduate, then you get another degree. If you're lucky, you might get a good job, but the job market is terrible. So don't be mad if you don't get a job, but then you're gonna have $400,000 of debt because you went to school and we charge for that. Like, it's wild to think about what's going on, and that's what we're doing. So it's encouraging the opposite of that. It's really interrupting, disrupting these cycles of perpetual white supremacy and abled supremacy. Go ahead.
My goodness, my goodness. I'm getting texts like, we got the agenda, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I kind of want to take that cue from TL and be like, can we just throw the rest of this out? I think you all have given us so many gifts. And at the top of the event, I said, I described today as a task, and not just an event. And earlier I referred to the participants having some homework. And what I want to share is that, you know, these folks have shared both kind of the large kind of arc of abolitionists and freedom dreaming, and also like kind of the intimate and lived experiences of how do we also internally struggle with that freedom dream. And I want to kind of to ask that of you all, the participants and viewers as well. We have one last Padlet, and that is meant to be a freedom dream space. It is a prompt that we can kind of dig into, knowing that it won't be closed. And I am tempted to ask lovingly that you all commit to coming back to that space and to coming back to those questions and the wisdom of other people as we kind of co-create individually and in community together. So I'm going to pull up that link and invite us to spend 5 minutes on it. And again, a loving invitation for you all to circle back to it as a tool and as a space where we can do a little bit of dreaming and imagining that horizon line. And I do want to honor kind of the blessing that Diana Gameros will share with us at the end as well. So I'm gonna screen share. We're all gonna, you know, take some space, 5 minutes, and we'll have a little bit of time to tend to your needs as well. But we'll come back 2:45. All right. Check the QR code for the link. It should be dropped in the chat as well. And we'll come back in 5 minutes. Thanks so much, y'all.
Yo, until you're free, I'll be learning about your life and rights. Looking out for what you need, working to adjust my sight. See, until you're free, I'll be stepping up physically, putting focus on the real pic, taking responsibility. I'm not trying to live in a world that wants to remove you. I'm trying to be in a place with space to include you. We out here playing by rules that muffle the truth, which eventually becomes soundproof. Say it loud.
I'm the one standing up.
I'm the one standing up.
I'll be lifting you up.
I'll be lifting you up.
I will never slow down.
I will never slow down.
No better time than now.
No better time than now.
Not free until you're free. And we will be louder and stronger together.
Time's up, dream. Time's up, speak. Time's up, lead. Time's up, believe.
That the time is now, that we got the power. Stand up side by side, impossible to break us down.
Time's up, dream. Time's up, speak. Time's up, lead. Time's up, believe.
That the time is now, that we got the power. Stand up side by side, impossible to break us down.
We can make a bigger voice. We can make it twice as loud. We can make a better choice. We can be proud.
Ven conmigo y alcemos una sola voz, que se escuche en cada esquina de este mundo. Tú decides, puedes elegir mejor, sentir orgullo de lo que logramos juntos.
Now is the time though. Yeah, but you gon' need some spine though. Yeah, you gon' need some backbone. We lost love, it's time to find it, bring it back home. Turn the lights on, where the lights at? Your presence is a present. It's time to fight back, stand up, stand out. Do everything but stand down. Have heart, play your part, do what you can now. The future ain't no mystery. Choices dictate everything that you finna see. You either spectate or you create. You either at the table or be what's on the plate.
Somos más fuertes cuando nos unimos. Ser solidarios es lo que elegimos. No se trata de lo mío, no se trata de lo tuyo. Yo te apoyo, doy mi mano, lo hago con orgullo.
All right, as previously stated, we know that was not a lot of time, but we're hoping that that was just a little teaser for you all to continue to do that work. But at this moment, we are just so grateful to have Diana Gameros with us. She is a singer, a songwriter, a music instructor, and activist. Her music reflects the 21st century experiences of an artist at the borderlands between cultures, languages, and genres. Originally from Ciudad Juárez, Mexico, Diana moved to the Bay Area in 2008. And since then, Diana has used music as a platform to bring light to her Latinx heritage and to expand the conversation around social justice issues, especially those involving the immigrant community. And so we just want to ask that you just allow yourself to experience the beauty and the brilliance and the power that Diana is going to share with us, and try to be present for that in this moment. So Diana, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, but especially for allowing me to learn with you and to share space with you, to feel inspired by you, with you, around you. So I am truly honored. I am a light-skinned Mexican woman with long black hair and bangs. I'm wearing a black shirt and a green silk scarf. Behind me, there's a white wall, but there's also a beautiful, big, rectangular, colorful painting of indigenous women at a fruit and flower market. I am at my mother's house on Chiricahua Apache, Sumas, Mezcalero Apache, and Tampachoa land in Ciudad Juárez, Mexico. And it's an honor and a joy to be here with you. I'll share 2 songs in hopes that we can uplift our spirits and share in song and in love. Does love have an open 'cause you're tired and poor. All those in need are dreamers. Teach us to dream again, oh children. We wanna see again. Oh, what a beautiful world, what a beautiful world. Oh, what a beautiful world, what a beautiful world. Come every weary soul, find your haven. Liberty is for all who can breathe free. Ven si estás cansado, encuentra un refugio. La libertad es para todo aquel que pueda soñar, oh dreamer. Muéstranos la verdad, oh children. Queremos la verdad. Oh, what a beautiful world, what a beautiful world. Oh, what a beautiful world, what a beautiful world. We say land of liberty, pretend equality. Let freedom reign. Quiero libertad. Does the cost of security bankrupt our humanity? Quiero libertad. Quiero libertad. And this song is to honor our conversation about dreaming and about what it means to be free and who deserves to be free. I believe that we all do. That's an innate right. That we should keep expressing it and keep demanding that we honor that right, that it's ours, that belongs to us. So thank you everyone for the conversation about dreaming and about freedom. The next song, I'm gonna close my participation with, but before that, I'm gonna describe my guitar. I didn't say that. This is an acoustic guitar. I have a capo. Now it's gonna be on the 3rd fret, and it's orange-looking guitar, nylon strings. And this is a song that accompanied the movement during the military dictatorship or during the revolution movement around the times of the military dictatorship in South America. This is a Chilean song that accompanied the people in their fight for change. The name of the song is Todo Cambia, Everything Changes. And I believe you have the lyrics there. So, you know, in Mexico, we have a saying, we have a song that says, sing, sing, do not cry, because when you sing, your heart rejoices. I believe that deeply. I believe that music is healing. So if you feel inspired, join us in singing.
Cambia lo superficial, cambia también lo profundo, cambia el modo de pensar, cambia todo en este mundo, cambia el clima con los años, cambia el pastor su rebaño, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Cambia el más fino brillante, de mano en mano su brillo, cambia el nido el pajarillo, cambia el sentir un amante, cambia el rumbo el caminante, y aunque esto le cause daño, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Sing with me. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Vente, abuelita. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia el sol en su carrera cuando la noche subsiste. Cambia la planta y se viste de verde la primavera. Cambia el pelaje la fiera. Cambia el cabello el anciano. Y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. And I should update you, my abuelita, my grandmother, just joined me on the shot. She's wearing a purple t-shirt, and she has white hair and a big, big smile on her face. Pero no cambia mi amor, por más lejos que me encuentre, ni el recuerdo ni el dolor de mi pueblo y de mi gente. Y lo que cambió ayer tendrá que cambiar mañana, así como cambio yo en estas tierras lejanas. ¡Cántale! Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. But my love does not change. No matter how far away I find myself, neither does the memory nor the pain of my country and my people. What changed yesterday will have to change tomorrow, just as I change in this foreign land. Changes. Everything changes. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia.
Todo cambia. Bye. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Have an amazing rest of your day. Blessings and health to everyone.
Diana, good Lord have mercy. Thank you también, abuelita. Thank you so much. Y'all, I was not ready for that. Ay, gracias, abuelita. De parte de todos, te queremos mucho. I just said thank you so much to our grandmother. We love and appreciate you so much. I think the beautiful combination between you, Diana, to really uplift all of the beautiful and powerful words that TL and Youth versus Apocalypse, Lizbeth and Isha, today has just been so powerful, and we are so grateful for the freedom dreaming and the love that you all exuded and shared with us today. So thank you. And folks who are able to in the chat, if you can just share some love to our panelists today in the chat and just let them know how grateful we are that they took the time out of their day to share of their spirits in the ways that they have today. Whew, and just take a deep collective breath, y'all. If we could all just take a deep collective breath and really just take in all of that goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Andrew, I'm not sure if you want to say a few words before we transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little speechless. That was so touching and such a beautiful, beautiful way to close this space. So thank you so much, Diana, and to Abuela. It's been a privilege and it's been such a challenging 3 months of work and labor, and it has been so deeply, deeply beautiful for us to gather and freedom dream in whatever ways are possible. So thank you so much. And you know, we're gonna I'll play us out, and please, you know, complete the evals. Like, let us know what you all thought. Please join us for the R&B that will be happening next Wednesday. Please engage with our resource fair. Check out links on the programs. We'll share out more resources and slide decks really shortly. Again, so grateful to all of our guests and storytellers and weavers today. And I hope you all have a really, really beautiful Saturday, and get that rest and get those freedom dreams dreaming. Thank you.
Shining bright. keep on shining, keep on shining. I can find it, see the light. I can find it, see the light. I can find it, see the light.
man.